Hello, I'm giving you part two to Have Eyes Can't See. There will be no apologies and there will be nothing with theatrics. All I set out to do is to give you straight facts. I am following up on my word that I would get back with you with Dr. Claude Anderson's statements about neighborhoods and communities, but I'd like to also include the reason why we look at life and our neighborhoods and our lack of communities the way we do. Not that we do not own a part in the way things are today, but I'm going to give you some background on how they got this way and why they are the way they are right now. Dr. Claude Anderson's book, Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America, Chapter 3, Building Competitive Communities. This nation would be colorblind when whites proclaim their black blood like they proclaim their Indian and European lineage. Basically, he's saying everybody has black blood because you all came from us, but that's another thing that you tried to hide. That's another thing that you swept under the rug, or you put a lake over it, okay? You tried to destroy it. So when we look at things in that perspective, the one-drop rule applies to everybody. But sometimes the law does not apply equally to everyone. And I am not going to go on a tangent. I don't want to get off topic, but we have to think. We have some of the greatest minds in this doggone universe, but we fail to think. We have been programmed to believe the exact thing that the master, or let us say the school system, the church, and all other entities have programmed into us so that we cannot think for ourselves. A group's ability to compete is determined by its internal cohesiveness and self-interest. A functional community can best be defined as a grouping of people who come together and organize for their own self-interest rather than misdirected altruistic interests. Building our own communities will allow Black Americans to become economically and politically competitive, but will also give us something we never had, a chance to compete from the vantage point of our own physical space, cultural values, resources, institutions, and history. Historically, societies were built upon three institutions that served as pillars: the family, the church, the community. For this reason, Black Americans need solid foundation of communities, not neighborhoods, upon which to begin empowering ourselves. Now, by that reading, you may think that we never had communities. All we had is neighborhoods. So I'm gonna make sure that I destroy that thought. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921, race riots. Recently, they said President Biden paid a visit to it, talked about the atrocities, but he didn't do nothing. Nobody ever does nothing because, see, the people that destroyed Tulsa, Oklahoma, they look just like him. And the sad part about it is the people that look like us are still acting as though they want someone to pat them on the head and say, "Good job, boy. You did exactly what I told you to do." And you have to be a man for yourself. Either die on your knees or die standing. It's up to you. Because when they come for you, they coming for you whether you're on your knees or on your feet. Greenwood District, one of the wealthiest communities in America. The mob burned and destroyed more than 35 miles or blocks of neighborhood, and more than 10,000 residents were left homeless. Why did they do these things? I'll tell you something. Envy and jealousy. The same thing that we perpetuate against each other. You learn this from the same person who misused you, sexually abused you and your children and your wife and your mother and everybody else. And you sit down here today and you act like nothing has happened. Oh, I'm not calling for no war. I'm not even calling for people to call out in certain things, because you'll be entering into something that you have no win. But it was made that way because you need to use your brain. You need to use the things that you have, the intellectual beings that we are, is the reason why the man has been misusing and taken from us, not only physically, mentally. We create everything, but he prospers. That means when you created things like the stoplight, gas mask, even electricity was not, they tell you that Edison and all that did all of that, but he had a black man working, and he actually blueprinted and did all the things that he needed to do in order for him to be put as the lead man on that invention. Okay? Now, Seneca Village is a very important village. It was in New York City. It used to stand where Central Park is today. It used to be a thriving black community. So you ask yourself, how did it go from a thriving black community into Central Park? Do you think those black people gave up their homes, what they built, willingly? I don't want to go into sadness, but let's just put it to you like this. Sometimes people make you an offer you can't refuse. Rosewood, Florida. It was until 1923 when white men lynched a resident because of false accusations, and they always come in and destroy cities under false accusations because of jealousy and envy, like I told you. There are many other things like East St. Louis, Illinois, 1970, OC, Florida, destroyed. Wilmington, North Carolina, Okie something, North Carolina. This is where we got a black lieutenant governor who is right there next to his master. He's fighting very hard for his master to get his plantation back. But he doesn't really run anything. The people that actually run this country, they got control of the money. They just have figureheads there because they don't want you to know who they are. Lastly, when we talk about communities and neighborhoods, let's talk about social and political governance. Lastly, a functional black community should have a structure of social and political governance that regulates community institutions and represents the collective interests of the community. All across America, black neighborhoods are administered and governed by whites, even in cities where black elected officials are already in place. Whites sets the rules, blacks are expected to obey. This pattern of domination was achieved with the full knowledge and support of both white and black societies. Now you ask yourself, how in the hell did that happen? Well, it happened simply because people or groups like the Boule, people who sold us out. Okay? Now, I want y'all to go back and do your history on certain things, because one of the things that we have to understand is all these secret societies and everything have their origin in Africa. But they won't tell you that, because when they conquered places, they didn't go and destroy all of that important information. They took it back to whence they came, or took it to the church. And then all of a sudden they started emulating it, like the Masons. And tell you the truth, I would even go so far as to say the foundation of most secret societies came straight out of Africa. Now, even when blacks are duly and legally elected to public office, they often do not make governing decisions that are in the best interest of their black constituents. Once in office, they often become sensitive to approval ratings and the need for re-election funds. Since blacks rarely conduct polls or vote based on criteria other than popularity and having little money for campaign contributions, blacks seeking or holding public office find it more advantageous to secure the approval of white society. There you go again. Black folks always seeking the approval of their master. How can you be free when you do that? In the case of black elected officials, they are restricted from assisting the black community because they do not control public or private resources. Now, I am talking about the difference between neighborhoods and communities. And I am telling you that we once had thriving communities. And you know why we do not have that? Don't blame it all on the European. But we fail to replicate the blueprint that our forefathers gave us to do it. Just because they lynched and burned and killed everybody in the city doesn't mean that it can't raise itself up. And that's exactly what they want you to do. Live just like you're living, in a scarcity mindset. But you are in an abundant universe. You are in an abundant atmosphere. You have abundance within you. God is within you. So stop acting like a damn cow. Most often, or most know or suspect that it is easier ideologically and politically to actually exploit disorganized blacks who lack both physical communities and a strong sense of community. We do not have a strong sense of community because, it was either beaten out of us, or the examples that we have in the home weren't good enough because, there was a concerted effort to destroy the black family, just like it was to destroy our communities. Okay? We often want to go off to ourselves, you see. Just look at our richest black players, politicians, businessmen, and everybody else. Do you think they're running back to the communities they came from to help them? Hell no. They think that the money that they've earned goes for the trinkets and the selfish lifestyle that they want to live. And they forget where they came from. But they forget when they could barely walk. Who supported you when you were in high school, grade school, junior high? You didn't have no money. Who supported you? Who changed your Pampers? You forget. You know why you forget? Because they make you forget. They show you all kind of luxurious living. They give you things you never had, respect and money for a time. But ask Diddy or Kelly, ask them what happens when the lights go out, when they decide that they don't need you anymore. You can't come home now. You done violated and did so many things that we can't use you. You stink. Now, in closing, I will say this. I had no intention of going where I went, and I had some more to give you from Dr. Claude Anderson, and this is the Powernomics book, The National Plan to Empower Black America. See, we can't teach people who already know everything. Our young folks already know everything. That's why I'm glad. I have an advisor. I call him Maestro, GRIAC 1. He lets me know to keep my word when I say I'm going to do something. Because, see, a lot of times I don't have the time or I am not given an opportunity to give my comments on more than one topic at a time because I only get 10 minutes. But now I'm moving into a different media sector that's giving me more time. But I understand that most people, they have the attention span of a gnat, and they're not interested in learning anything because their hands are already balled up. They can't learn anything because their minds are closed. They already know who they want to learn from. And the person that they want to learn from is the same person who violated them. I could not understand how a person could think that somebody loves them when they were the same people who took out your people. The only way you could learn is when you open up yourself and your mind to other things. We have some great minds out there. So where do they go? What do they use them for? Why do we let them take the great things that we have from us? Right now, we're in a pickle. I'm not going to get into no politics or anything like that, because if people don't know by now that you only have one choice, I'm going to tell you the reason why you got one choice. Back in slavery, they knew that the people who were the masters were actually misusing men, women, boys, girls. They did not care. But their wives, they were looking. And when men and women became their property, they imitated what their husbands were doing. So they became foul. Then the people that they violated were watching all the time. So when they got money, they violated the very people that they looked like, they slept with, and that they came over the waters with. And even if you were not taken from Africa, and if you were here when people came here already, it didn't mean that you didn't come from Africa, because you have a thing called a trade winds. You don't have to paddle. The trade winds will take you from Africa to the Caribbean and on around the New World, or whatever you want to call it. But you know, the thing that really black folks suffer from the most? Self-hate. And not only that, you think you know everything sometime when you don't know. I found out that I thought I knew something, and I know I just know a drop in the bucket. Right now, I hope you got something out of that, because that message is not for me. It was just something that I heard Dr. Claude talking about, and I wanted to elaborate on. I try to speak from the spirit. Because if I speak for myself, I couldn't do it coherently. I'd be cursing and doing a lot of things that really is not, it's not cool. But this is no joke. If you don't vote for you, vote for your children. If you don't care about you, care about your children. Stop being selfish. We need to come back and think community minded. We always had communities. They destroyed them. In fact, some of them they covered up with lakes and everything else. So to hell with the neighborhoods. Let's go back to being community minded people. And last but not least, I will tell you this. There will be some people that look like you. That could be Africans, that could be Jamaicans, that could be the Boule. We have to realize that not everybody's going to be community minded and it's going to be for us. So let's take a page, like I said, sometimes we have to take a page from the European book. Whenever they find a traitor or they find somebody that's going against what they're trying to establish, you know what they do. If they would kill you because they were envious and jealousy that you had more than them, what do you think they would do if you cross them when they're trying to implement something in this culture, in this day and time? Ooh,